It had been 4 years since Lily had seen any of them, but the message from Owen lit something in her that she couldn't ignore. One last night, all of us. Cabin on Lake Monroe. You in? That's all it said. No details, no promises. Just an invitation wrapped in old memories and maybe a few ghosts. Lily sat on the edge of her bed in her small Chicago apartment, her fingers hovering over her phone screen. It was December, bitterly cold, and her life felt stuck. Predictable days at her marketing job, quiet nights with red wine and Netflix, and a heart still carrying the echo of a goodbye that never felt finished. She knew who would be there. Owen, the organizer and peacekeeper. Emily, full of opinions and secrets. Jamie and Matt, who always had that strange electricity between them. And Jake, her Jake. Or at least he had been, for one perfect, complicated year during college. He was the boy who gave her quiet nights on rooftops and long drives that led nowhere. The boy who never kissed her when he should have, and never stopped looking at her like he wanted to. They never officially dated, never made promises. But they had built something soft and delicate between them. And then they let it go. Or maybe they just didn't know how to hold on. The last time she saw Jake was at Owen's graduation party. She wore a red dress she knew he loved, and he stood across the room watching her with that storm in his eyes look. But nothing was said. A slow, quiet heartbreak stretched between them as they drifted apart with no closure, just silence. Now, 4 years later, the thought of being in the same room again, under the same roof, made her pulse quicken. She texted Owen. "Is everyone going?" His reply came quick. "Yep, even Jake." That was all it took. Her hands moved without thinking, tossing sweaters, books, an old flannel scarf he once complimented, into her duffel bag. She paused at her mirror, searching her reflection for the girl she used to be. Would Jake even recognize her now? More importantly, would she still feel something when she saw him? She already knew the answer. Lake Monroe was a place wrapped in nostalgia. Back in college, the 6 of them had rented the same rustic cabin, each winter, filling it with wine, late-night music, and tangled conversations that lasted till sunrise. It had always felt like a world of their own. No classes, no pressure, just warmth, friendship, and maybe almost love. But life had scattered them. Careers, cities, mistakes. Now they were all grown up, with lives that looked fine from the outside. But something inside still longed for that feeling of being young and real and seen. As Lily boarded her train, snow began to fall outside the window. The journey felt both like a return and a beginning. She stared out at the blurred trees and thought about what it meant to revisit a past that never really ended. Was this trip a second chance? Or just a reminder of what could never be? She didn't know. All she knew was her heart beat faster with every mile closer to that cabin. 1 room, 6 people, and a night where anything could happen. Something deep inside her whispered this. Some goodbyes aren't meant to last forever, and some love stories don't need perfect timing. They just need a second chance. The moment Lily stepped into the cabin, it felt like the past wrapped its arms around her. The wooden floor creaked under her boots, the smell of pine and old memories hanging heavy in the air. It was just as she remembered. One big open room with stone walls, a fireplace crackling gently, and sleeping bags spread out like they were still 20 years old. But they weren't kids anymore. The laughter was still there, but quieter now. Softer. Everyone was older, carrying pieces of life on their faces, the kind of things you can't post on social media. Owen greeted her first, warm and familiar, giving her a tight hug that smelled like whiskey and campfire. Emily followed, dressed in layers and lip gloss, smiling a little too hard, like she was holding something in. Matt and Jamie sat close, on the couch, their legs nearly touching, stealing glances when they thought no one noticed. And then, there was Jake. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, his eyes locking with Lily's the second she walked in. He didn't smile. Neither did she. There was something heavier than distance between them. Unspoken words. Missed chances. They hadn't touched in 4 years, but her body remembered everything about him. The way he used to lean in when he talked, the quiet warmth in his voice. The way he never tried to make her laugh. He just did. She gave him a small nod. That was all either of them could manage. The others chatted easily, but Lily felt the tension under every word, like everyone was pretending to still fit into the roles they had back in college, even though life had changed them all. Dinner was a mix of chili, wine, and old stories. Owen played music from someone's Bluetooth speaker, songs they all used to scream sing in cars, now playing like a sad echo. Everyone laughed at first, loosening up with every sip. But under the surface, things felt strange, forced. Every time Jake spoke, Lily's ears followed. Every time she laughed, his eyes found her. The air between them was thick with something unfinished. After dinner, they all gathered around a low coffee table. Owen lit a candle in the center, dimming the lights until only the fire and the flame glowed. "Let's play that game," Jamie suggested, her voice slow and daring. "One question, one truth, no skipping." A hush fell over the room. It was a dangerous game in a room full of people who used to love each other, or almost did. Jake was the one to start. He looked straight at Lily, calm and unreadable. "What are you most afraid to say out loud?" he asked, his voice steady but low, like he wasn't just asking a question. He was giving her a key to something locked deep inside. Lily froze. The others went quiet too, their laughter slipping away like smoke. Her chest tightened. She could lie, or she could open a door she had kept closed for too long. And yet, looking into Jake's eyes, she knew there was only one answer. She swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "That I already met the love of my life, and I let him go." For a moment, no one breathed. The fire popped softly, like even the room was listening. Jake didn't react. Not really. But his jaw tensed, and his fingers curled slightly at his side. Before anyone could speak, Emily laughed too brightly, brushing it off. "Wow, okay, deep start, someone ask something fun." But the moment had already carved itself into the space between them. Everyone felt it. Something had cracked open. That night, as the others settled into their sleeping bags, Lily stepped out into the snow. The lake glistened in the moonlight. And when she heard footsteps behind her, she didn't turn. She already knew it was Jake, and she already knew. Everything was about to change. The night was cold, but Lily barely felt it. Snowflakes drifted down like whispers, and the frozen lake reflected the silver moonlight in soft, broken pieces. She stood there wrapped in her coat in silence, her breath rising in clouds as she tried to calm the storm inside her. Jake's footsteps approached from behind, slow, careful, like he didn't want to startle her, or maybe he just didn't know what to say. But Lily didn't turn around. She didn't have to. She could feel him the way you feel old memories, warm and aching at the same time. For a long moment, they just stood there, side by side, eyes on the horizon. No words, just the quiet pull of something that had never truly gone away. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "You didn't answer the question." Jake let out a slow breath, like he'd been waiting for her to ask. "I was hoping you'd ask it back," he said. She turned to look at him, her heart beating faster, knowing exactly where this was headed, but still unsure if it would heal or break her all over again. "All right," she whispered. "What are you most afraid to say out loud?" Jake looked at her then, really looked. The way he used to in college, like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. His jaw tightened, his eyes darker than she remembered. And when he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost breaking. "That I never stopped waiting for you." Just like that, every wall she had built crumbled. 4 years of distance, silence, and pretending not to care suddenly felt meaningless. She wanted to touch him, to hold him, to rewind time and stop herself from ever walking away. But before either of them could move closer, a loud crash came from inside the cabin. A shout, then someone crying. The moment shattered. They ran back inside, snow crunching beneath their boots, their hearts still caught in the space between confession and kiss. Inside, the cabin was a mess. The small coffee table had been knocked over, and Emily stood in the corner with tears on her cheeks, while Owen looked angry and exhausted. Matt had his arm around Jamie, shielding her from something, though Lily couldn't tell what. "I told you not to bring that up," Emily snapped through clenched teeth. Owen's voice was sharp, but not unkind. "We can't keep pretending. It's not fair. To us or to anyone." The room went quiet as Lily and Jake stepped in. Everyone's faces turned toward them, the tension thick and raw. "What's going on?" Lily asked gently. Owen ran a hand through his hair. "Emily and we broke up months ago," he said. "But we thought if we told anyone it would ruin tonight. So we pretended. For this one night. For the group." Emily crossed her arms, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to let go, not here, not with everyone." There was a silence that followed, a different kind of silence, one filled with recognition. They were all holding on to something, or someone. Jamie stepped forward then, her eyes on Matt. "I can't be your secret anymore." Matt looked like someone had just pulled the ground from under him. "Then don't be," he said, reaching for her hand, finally. And that was it. One truth set off another. No more pretending. No more hiding. No more fear. In that one room, under flickering light and years of history, they all started letting go of who they used to be, and started showing who they really were. Later, after the storm of emotions had quieted, Jake found Lily again. This time he sat beside her by the fire, their knees touching, a soft blanket wrapped around both of them. He looked at her, and she looked at him, and nothing needed to be said. They had waited long enough, and they both knew. The night wasn't over yet. The cabin was quieter now, the storm of truth having passed, but its effects still lingered in the air like smoke from the dying fire. Everyone sat scattered around the room, softer, quieter, stripped bare of the roles they used to play. No more pretending, no more hiding behind laughter or inside jokes. The night had exposed what time and distance had failed to bury: the unspoken, love, the quiet heartbreaks, the longing no one wanted to admit. Owen sat on the floor near the window, staring out at the snow like he was finally allowing himself to feel alone. Emily sat across from him, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Not angry anymore, just exhausted. They weren't angry exes. They were two people who had once loved each other fiercely, but had outgrown the story they tried to keep writing. And maybe letting go, here in this place where it all began, was exactly what they needed. Matt and her. Jamie were curled up on the same blanket, hands finally intertwined. Jamie rested her head on his shoulder, and Matt kept brushing his thumb over her knuckles like he couldn't believe she was real. No one said anything, but the way they looked at each other said it all. They were done hiding. They had wasted too many years being scared of ruining the friendship, and now they finally knew. It had always been love. And then there was Lily and Jake. They sat by the fireplace, the last flames flickering low, the rest of the room slowly falling into sleep. But their night was still wide awake. Jake looked at her like she was something fragile and familiar, something he wanted to touch but was afraid to lose all over again. "I never stopped loving you," he said, not dramatically, not with any performance. Just truth, raw and steady. Lily looked back at him, her heart breaking open in the gentlest way. "I think I was always yours," she whispered, and just like that, the space between them disappeared. He reached for her hand first, and then slowly, like the earth had, tilted just a little. She leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. No kiss. Not yet. Just closeness. Just safety. Just the weight of 4 years melting away between heartbeats. Outside, the snow kept falling. The lake was still. And in that small wooden room, something had shifted in all of them. Not just in their relationships, but in themselves. The night had peeled back every layer they'd used to protect their hearts. And what was left was something tender and real. Not perfect, not clean, but honest. That kind of rare, grown-up love that's willing to admit its mistakes and still try again. By morning, the fire was out, and the sun slipped through the frosted windows in long golden beams. They woke up slowly, quietly, wrapped in blankets and new beginnings. No one rushed to leave. No one talked about what came next. They simply made coffee, passed mugs around, and looked at each other with softer eyes. It didn't need to be said, aloud. This night had changed everything. The past no longer held them hostage. The future didn't feel so far away. And in that one room, where laughter and pain had shared the same space, they had found something rare. Truth, connection, and maybe, just maybe, the courage to love without fear. Jake and Lily stood by the window one last time, watching the snow, together. He slid his arm around her waist, and she leaned into him, smiling softly. Not everything broken stays broken. Some love stories just take the long way home.